Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Sounds like you can hear me here in the room. Can you hear me on Zoom? Yay, thank you. That's such an interesting gesture. Is it hitchhiking? Does it mean we need more volume, or is it good? Thank you. It's like, what did I see on Top Gun? Ready to launch. So, hi everybody. I always want to apologize for the hybrid process. To have this room and this room. The reality is, dear friends on Zoom, that I will be inevitably spending more time in this room, more awareness. Let me see. David Mayer, I caught your attention. May I deputize you as a co-host, just in case all hell breaks loose and you can do something at that end? Okay. And I don't know what to do about that. We'll just see what happens from there. And one last thing is, on Sundays, and only on Sundays, this now broadcasts direct to YouTube. So should you not want your face or your name showing on YouTube, turn off your camera and change your name. It's an opportunity to have a new, interesting name. Whew, that's what I mean. I apologize for all that stuff. It's just the way it is, though. How many? There's 42. There's about the same number of people on Zoom as there are in the room now. About the same. So, hello, Trina. Before you leave today, there will be coffee and tea, and Had has brought some wonderful cupcakes from Sarah Bellum's bakery. Before you leave, I encourage you to go out the door here and look at the porch. Look at the wheelchair ramps, because they are stained and they're looking just absolutely gorgeous. And so, all right. I want to begin with a poem, as I like to do. Any excuse for a good poem. This is a little, I can do this. It's a Billy Collins poem, written November 11th, 2019. It's called Downpour. That's to wake you up. Is your mind wandering? Last night, there's one more thing to do. These damn little buttons. Push this. Record here. Okay. All right. Last night, we ended up on the couch, trying to remember all the friends who had died so far. And this morning I wrote them down in alphabetical order on the flip side of a shopping list you had left on the kitchen table. So many of them had been swept away as if by a hand from the sky. It was good to recall them. I was thinking under the cold lights of a supermarket as I guided the cart with wobbly wheels up and down the long, strident aisles. I was on the lookout for blueberries, English muffins, linguine, heavy cream, light bulbs, apples, Canadian bacon, and whatever else was on the list, which I managed to keep grocery side up. Until I had passed through the electric doors, when I stopped to realize as I turned the list over that I had forgotten Terry O'Shea, as well as the bananas and the bread. It was pouring by then, spilling, as they say here in Ireland, people splashing across the lot to their cars. And that is when I set out, walking slowly and precisely, a soaking wet man bearing bags of groceries, walking as if in a procession honoring the dead. I felt I owed this to Terry, who was such a strong painter, for almost forgetting him, and to all the others who had formed a circle around him on the screen in my head. I was walking more slowly now, in the presence of the compassion the dead were extending to a comrade. Plus, I was in no hurry to return to the kitchen, where I would have to tell you all about Terry and the bananas and the bread that I forgot. I have a new shawl. It's a gift from an old friend. She's not older than me, but we were students of Ruth Denison together, and she came on several retreats that I taught in the early days. She's another friend who knows when she'll die, because she's using the Oregon Death with Dignity Act. We had our last meeting the other day. So it feels real special to me. It's a nice thing. Changes things when you know when the bus is coming. But we don't know. Most of us don't know. So why not let's decide to live it up, to go for broke, to take today as the last one. Is there something you've really been wanting to do? Is there someone you've really been wanting to tell that you love them? Or that you're sorry? Why not do it today? Have you been meaning to go to the beach? Or clean house? Or learn to yodel? Today. Now. Well, maybe not now for the yodeling. I worked in a ski resort in central Switzerland when I was young. I was one of 2 foreigners that lived in that valley. And the police found me one night at 2:00 in the morning in the tunnel that led into town yodeling. There had been a burglary not far away. So I was taken in the police car for interrogation. They finally did believe me that I was in the tunnel yodeling. It's an appropriate thing to do. So all of that said, here we sit, right here. Why not sit right here? Why not be aware of sitting right here? To notice where the body comes into contact with the chair. To notice the aliveness in your hands. They're alive and tingling, aren't they? There's some, and if we put aside the word tingling, then we get a concept. But just notice that they're alive. Notice that the feet are alive. If your eyes are open, it's helpful to become aware of seeing. If they're closed, the fact of not seeing is of interest. And perhaps we could allow awareness to be present in the entirety of the body. This is a living, breathing human being. There are so many things we could do with the mind. Way back 2,600 years ago, the Buddha made some pretty strong recommendations. Why not, in the midst of all the complexity of life and the universe, why not pick some home base that we can use for orientation, like breathing in and breathing out? And so time and again, we orient, we focus in the direction of here, sitting, breathing. And paying attention to breathing doesn't require any conceptual filters. There's just life, breathing in and breathing out. It's probable that concentration is not yet perfected. And the mind has some strong tendencies to wander. Totally normal. Hearing. Sounds coming into being and then disappearing. And the mind can make its habitual determinations. Oh, it's a dog. From the tonality, the mind can create, oh yes, it's a little dog. Or it's a yappy little dog. Or it reminds me of my dog that passed away. Or and we always have this, as long as we're alive, we have this in-breathing and out-breathing. The wandering mind may take the guise of desire, of wanting, of the opposite of that, of wanting not, disliking. It may become restlessness, agitation, and worry, or sloth and torpor, dullness. It can become doubt. There's so many costumes that the trance states of everyday life pull on. But the instruction is so simple. Don't buy into the apparent reality of these phenomena. Remember what you really are, which is that which knows, that which is awake. When we stop like this, whatever's been lurking in the background will find its way to the front. Sometimes there are emotions. We can have upwellings of sadness or fear or loneliness or joy or delight. It's not by accident that they come to the fore. They're looking for healing. They're looking for our loving presence. each breath, each sound, each emotion, each thought. They all sing the song of impermanence. They are part of the unfolding universe. They are manifestations of anicca, not permanent, not stable. Every time the mind wanders is an opportunity to wake up. Every time we reorient and come close to breathing, the sensations of breathing, we strengthen concentration. We further strengthen curiosity, tranquility, equanimity, patience, love and compassion. It all comes in a package. And we can be particularly clear about the love, loving kindness, with a simple intention. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. This is with the understanding of love, meaning there's room for everything. We're not setting up a battle of what part of me is bad and wrong that I need to get rid of. There are all those aspects of my being. Well, I want to rein some of them in and feed others. It makes no sense at all to harbor grudges against oneself or others. I aspire, I intend, I will practice to love and accept the experience of this life, myself, to the best of my ability. And when we stop our headlong rush to somewhere, we'll often discover there's some pain or suffering or both. When I discover suffering in my own life experience, it is my intention to hold myself in sweet, gentle compassion. We use mindfulness of breathing or some other concentration technique to stabilize, to companion mindfulness, the mindfulness which knows what's happening, which is awake. There's an aspect of the teaching, one of the steps of the Eightfold Path, called wise or skillful mindfulness. And as the practice grows in us, we become attentive to much more of the human condition. We can sometimes observe the arising and passing of liking and disliking. A sense impression occurs or a thought occurs. And there's liking or disliking, or it's not yet determined whether it's to be liked or disliked. Sometimes we take a look at the overall mind. Is this a mind right now which is expansive and open, receptive? Or is it perhaps contracted, focused in on something, upset about something? Is it a mind characterized by ease and love and kindness, or is it a mind characterized by harshness and agitation, perhaps, some striving? Ever so delicately, we open to more and more of the experience of being human. This human right here. Please now let the miracle of awareness awaken in the buttocks and thighs. Notice the aliveness of the legs and the feet. Of the fingers and hands. Notice the aliveness of the throat, the neck, the jaw, the cheeks, the nose, the forehead, scalp. And coming home to the aliveness in what we would think of or call the eyes. And we can experiment by moving these eyes inside their beautifully lubricated little home. We can do circles or figure eights or back and forth. And then, or now, let's notice the intention to open the eyes. Notice they don't open by themselves. They open because of an effort of intention. Notice the intention, and then at some point, do let the eyes begin to open. And be really attentive to what happens. At first, there's maybe a little blurriness, light. And then seeing happens, objects appear. Seeing. And we can kind of play with this. We can let the eyes close again and watch how all the objects disappear. And then open again. Meditators become interested in some very strange things. That's why it's really good to have a meditator friend or two. Because with a lot of people, if you were to say, I spent half an hour this afternoon in the garden, opening and closing my eyes. It was mind-boggling. On a retreat decades ago, I made a discovery which is true to this day, which is that the visual experience of the right eye is not as acute. Even with glasses, there's some way it's not as sharp. However, the color is rich. The left eye is more acute. We only discover that kind of thing if we really get quiet. And we could say, well, what's the point? If we can have that kind of acuity of observation of visual fields, we can then notice thoughts that previously would have gone unnoticed, or slight reactions, or so many things. This is one of the reasons this practice is known as vipassana, satipatthana vipassana. And vipassana is I love the word, it's an elegant word. I think in my liking of words, it's second only to my favorite, which is ubiquitous. That's a fine word. But vipassana, perceiving things as they really are, changing, for one thing. I want to go back to the remove spotlight. There. Hello, friends on Zoom. Things going okay on the broadcast, David? Great, thank you. I'm going to go back to spotlight. Okay. Speaking of strange and perhaps socially inappropriate things, I could just sit here for the rest of our time and just admire you and be delighted. Look what we're doing. We're following along in a thousands of year ancient tradition. Thousands of years people have done this exact thing. And in the devotion of reducing our own suffering and the suffering of our loved ones, and in fact the suffering of all beings. How wonderful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on Zoom. I have a few announcements. I'm actually not particularly aversive to announcements today, which is really a good thing. Connie, are you doing your usual devotion today? Connie will be acting as the goddess of the library from 12 till 2. And we have a monumental and very well organized library. So if you have any questions about the Dharma, there's a book in there about it. I have an announcement from Candle, one of our teachers here. Beginning on September the 6th, Candle, along with members of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, will be hosting several weeks of meeting and discussion and connecting, and on discussion on connecting and belonging while reading through the book You Belong, A Call to Connection by Sabine Selassie. This is an opportunity for community members to join in meaningful conversation along with exploratory journal prompts for each chapter using this book as a starting point. Everyone's welcome. Belonging is our way forward. That's a nice slogan, isn't it? Belonging is our way forward. There's quite a bevy of offerings coming up in the fall. Doug Pullen is offering his introduction to mindfulness. Jim's going to be doing Qigong on some Saturdays one Saturday each month. I have 3 classes planned. I'm struggling with the calendar a little bit. One of them is a change. I thought I was going to use the book Non-Duality by my teacher, Matt Flickstein, but changed my mind. I've wanted to do this for a long time. There's a monk named Ajahn Sumedho, who's really one of my great heroes. And I'm offering an 8-week on Wednesday nights gathering, reading the 5th volume of his collected works. And it's just charming, wonderful. I used to have behind my seat, you remember those little cassette tapes things? You plug them in. I had 27 of them, a series of his talks, behind my seat in my car. And I'd reach back out and pick up take up any one and stick it in. And I got it's like, I know where this goes. But he's been a Theravadan monk for 50 years or more, I think. And he's lovely. He has a smile that when he enters a room and smiles, the whole room lights up, right? And he's a giant. He's 6'4" or something. And in Thailand, that made him anyway. So that's about his person. And the teachings are very fundamental Theravadan Buddhist. Here's how to understand the way the world is, and here's how to use meditation to support that understanding and to make it real rather than theoretical. So that information from that will be out within a week. And then I will be doing, perhaps even the 1st of October, Saturday, I think it will be that day, backed by popular demand, Remembering Death, a favorite. I've done it once a year. It will not happen online. It just doesn't feel okay for me to open that can of worms and not be present with people. And then there will be another one day later, November-ish, which will be an exposition. I have an operating hypothesis, a working map that I use to kind of to help point people. Here's the next step for you. It's the map from here to awakening. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid Buddhist Jungian concoction that I've been using actually for 25 years. So I'm going to do a one day on describing that map. It's nice to be doing announcements and not dislike it. It's funny. You may be disliking it. It's quite reasonable. There's a couple of other things. One is, thank you for coming in person. And those of you on Zoom and YouTube, some of you, of course, are at a distance, and so you can't come. But we're coming back to life. And it's really, those of you that are here, this is really different from Zoom, isn't it? And if after we're done, you come through the passageway into the living room and have a cerebellum pastry, cupcake, or sit across the table from someone you're happy to see again, or maybe you're happy to meet for the first time, and all of a sudden it's n-dimensional human interaction. And so I invite those of you that are not here to come, and to come regularly. Some of us have loved ones who are, or ourselves actually, who are somehow immune compromised. And so masks will always be welcome. You know, in my travels, I've done a bit, and after SARS 1, remember that? Flying in Asia, at least a third of the people on airplanes have worn masks for 15 years. So there's a good reason for some of us to be wearing masks. And so if you want to come and feel somehow you be singled out or not respected, that's just not true. That we will, and also the choir loft is a great place to go if you're really concerned, because then you're not in contact. Speaking of belonging, we have to be able to bring our particular vulnerabilities or the vulnerabilities of our loved ones. I've talked with so many people who are being very careful still because, you know, my mother is 85 years old and has this and this and this condition, and I don't want to be the one that brings it to her. Sensible. And finally, I want to say thank you to Paula and Paul and Vic for coming yesterday and spending 6 hours, I guess, finishing, staining the porch. It's almost finished. We ran out of oil at the very last minute. And last weekend, Nick and I were here for 3 or 4 hours working on it. And it's so beautiful. I really invite you, go out in the backyard and look back at the building. This is a little wave of emotion. We pulled it off. It's been 5 years in the making to have, actively, we raised 60 grand 5 years ago. And then we ran into the city permit department. And it became really a big deal. So thank you. Thank you to all the volunteers, any of you that volunteer. And we always need more volunteers. Maggie, our volunteer coordinator, is not here, but you can find her on our website. Oh, and thanks to Molly and Gregory, and lots of people have worked on it. Our new brand spanking new website will be up very soon. It's like in the fine polishing stages, getting little errors out and so on. And it's going to be so much easier to use. You can find stuff simply. And now, finally, it is my great privilege and pleasure to invite you to become a supportive, financially supportive. We don't have a membership by design, but a participant at PIMC. And by doing this, what I'm doing is I am coming to you with a deal you'd be wise not to refuse. I was going to say you cannot, but that's a little coercive. Because I'm bringing you this. You actually have an opportunity to support financially one of the most important missions on the earth. Right? What does this place do? It transforms suffering into love. And it does it incredibly efficiently. I am in the extraordinary, fortunate position to be, and I know it happens with the other teachers too, but hundreds, I think I could say it's hundreds of people have come to me, often with tears in their eyes, and said, PIMC changed my life. I walked in the doors and I knew I was home, or I liked it or didn't like it, but then I had never run into a teaching that actually worked for me. And my marriage is better, or I got out of the marriage finally, or I'm a better parent, or I finally can do the work that I've wanted to do because I'm not so caught up in my self-hatred. mean, that's an amazing product, right? It's a quiet factory, but we're busy working on the greed, hatred, and ignorance issues. So that said, and this is also true for those of you online, I just had an intrusive thought from Marshall Rosenberg. When making a request like this, there's several ways to think of it, but the one that's really beautiful is, please fulfill my request only if you can do it with the pleasure of a small child feeding a hungry duck. So if you make a contribution, it's kind of like, oh God, I have to. Don't do it. But if you pause for a little while, you may be online and you're going to make a monthly contribution, which is the best thing for our budget. Because the online contribution remembers when you forget, or when you forget to come. But pause. Before you write a check, and I would say do this with all charity, before you write it, what's happening in my heart here? What's my purpose here? And then take delight in it. Well, that was, for me, relatively painless. Usually I have this resistance. So we're now going to have Jim Dalton do a little mindful movement, following which we're going to have Adam sing for us. And then I'm going to give a Dharma talk, the second in a series of 15 to 18 on the Eightfold Path. And then we will be done. And then we can have coffee and tea and set off on the rest of our day. Thank you very much for your patience and for your presence. And Mr. Dalton. We don't need to change the screen.
So we have moved to standing, so we have contact with the earth through the bottoms of our feet. Just sway a little bit and feel how that changes back and forth. And coming to stillness, we'll just bring our attention into our dominant hand and allow it to raise and release. Can we be present with the beginning of the journey? Movement through till we get to a point where we're kind of out from our shoulders, and then release. Staying present with the beginning and the journey. The end, and then the release has a journey also. Staying present. And we can ask ourselves, is that pleasant? Unpleasant? Undecided? Now lifting two hands. Staying present with the release. And again, watching, feeling, sensing the end and the beginning. Now, for me, it was more enjoyable moving together, hands moving together. And in my peripheral vision, there's hands all over the room moving together. So the feeling tone changes. But there's still this beginning process, ending, and then beginning to descend. There's a little gap in between where there's no motion. Either way, we can be present for that split second. Reach up with one arm and then reach far enough so that you pull the heel off the floor. Feel the toe on the, on that side, your dominant toe, if your non-dominant hand and your non-dominant toe. Put your attention very precisely in the palm of your hand and the big toe of the same side. We can be very precise, or we can just surrender to the whole body, sweeping, releasing, attending to change here, here, here. And again, what is the feeling tone when you sense the whole room sweeping? Noticing this change, this, this, and opening the hands and pausing for a second. The life in the hands, the life in the fingers. And there's breathing. Releasing again, but reaching out to the side. Overhead and down the center. There's a journey here. It begins and ends. Sinking, sinking. Present, here, present, here, present, here. How's the breath? Shallow, deep, smooth, raggedy. And then sweeping out one more time in front and resting the shoulders, Bringing attention into the feet on the floor, the lower legs, the upper legs, scanning across the whole pelvic girdle, supports the spine, moving up the spine, into the shoulders and the neck, crown of the head, and then release the arms. Reaching out, attending to this movement. Till it ends and then releases. Bringing our hands together in gratitude for another chance to practice together. And like Robert said, I'll be doing this on a regular basis on the third Saturday of the month. I don't know when that is. No idea.
Nice, thank you.
All righty.
Gorgeous. Remind me your last name. Roland. Oh. Adam Roland. Okay. I'll plug in. Yeah, here. Let's do a little. I have volume. Yeah. I think you will have nothing right now. Once you try it. There's something there? I don't think so. Maybe there is. That guitar has such wonderful resonance, it might. Well, actually, oh no, here we go. 1, 2, 3, this one. Try that. Yep. Are we good? Fresh in off the road from international tour. Adam Roland singing for us and playing. Fresh from Dharma centers throughout the Bay Area. That'd be true.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm new to this Sangha, and I'm grateful for Robert for letting me meet you all in this way. And hello, Internet. So, I'm just sharing one song before the talk. Ooh. Thanks.
We might have to adjust your ears.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
All right. I remember when I saw Joanna Macy on retreat, and she would say, "Throw it over your shoulder like a continental soldier," when she was doing this. Now I know why. Okay. So this is a song called Welcome. And if the meditation didn't welcome all the the pleasant and unpleasant and neutral aspects of life, I welcome this song to welcome those. Welcome the doubt. Welcome the faith. Welcome the love. And welcome the hate. Welcome the peace. And welcome the wars. I know you can't leave till you've come through that door. And there is no hope. There is no fear. You're free to come and go. Everything's welcomed here. Welcome the stillness. Welcome the strong winds. When I open up, that means I'm letting it all in. Welcome the heavens and welcome the hells. It's not where I'm going, it's right here where this heart dwells. And there is no hope, there is no fear. You're free to come and go. Everything's welcome here. You come from the beginningless. You go to the beginningless. I have nothing to do with this, but I have the choice to welcome you with kindness. Welcome you with tenderness. Welcome your comings and your goings and your in-betweens. And there is no hope and there is no fear. You're free to come and go. Everything's welcome here. If you feel like a small child feeding a duck at the thought of singing the chorus or trying to or humming along, feel free. There is no hope, there is no fear. You're free to come and go. Everything's welcome here. We'll do that one more time, a cappella. And there is no hope, there is no fear. You're free to come and go. Everything's welcomed here. Welcome. Oh. Thank you. Oh,
Wow. That was just gorgeous. How's this volume? Is it okay still? Not too high. I turned it up a little bit. Beck says from the internet, beautiful song, thank you. Hmm. I would like to for the wisest, most awake part of me, that isn't actually me, to be here for this next half hour. Because what I have to say is of extraordinary importance. And it's, if you'll take a moment, those of you here in the room, you can look back against the back wall there. There's a piece of cloth that I bought in Thailand. And it's a representation of the first sermon of the Buddha. The first thing he ever taught. And he had his awakening experience. He had the awakening occur. And then 7 weeks he spent right there. And then he had 5 friends who had abandoned him when he started to eat again. He fasted himself almost to death. And the teachings say he looked around the world with his celestial eye and found them about 10 days walk away. He was in Bodh Gaya in India, and they were in the deer park north of Benares or Varanasi. So he made his way to them. On the way, he ran into a merchant, and the merchant was kind of blown away by the glow this person had. And he said, "What are you? Are you some kind of a god?" And he said, the Buddha replied, "No, I'm awake," which is the meaning of Buddha, awakened one. I'm awake. So then he went to where his friends were hanging out, practicing. And as he approached them, they turned away. They decided, this guy, he's fallen. He's eating again, and he was nursed back to health by a woman. But as he got closer, something happened, and one of them prepared a seat for him. They just couldn't resist this energy that was coming toward them. And this isn't in the traditional teaching, but I like the way it makes it feel, which is that the first thing he said to them might have been, "I found it. We've been searching for years. I found it. I found the key to freedom from suffering." So it's that key that I want to talk about, that I, Robert, want to do my best to talk about. I learned these teachings in my early 20s. 51 years ago was my first retreat. And my life turned around remarkably. And I started talking about dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, suffering. And it's true that there was so much, my life was so much more full of overt suffering than it is now. But I didn't really quite believe the teachings. That, because I really believed that, when I finally got the right partner or the right job or the right something, that then I'd be enduringly happy, which is, of course, what consumerism promises, right? The worldview in which we are swimming says if you get enough goods, you'll be happy. If you can get distance enough from pain and suffering of all kinds, then you'll be happy. And has it worked for you? Are you really profoundly content? Hasn't for me. The one thing that has really worked has been waking up. I think it was, maybe it was online recently. I talked about learning how to meditate with severe, extreme, even body pain can be profoundly relieving. And I worked in hospice for several years, and there's one particular man that I remember who was in extraordinary pain, and I taught him. He was on a pump, a medication pump, and he was dying. But he was just grimacing against the pain all the time. As soon as they brought the medication level down such that he could speak, he was in overwhelming pain. And I went and I sat with him and I asked him, "Do you mind if I breathe with you?" And so I did the ah breath. And the ah breath it's a marvelous practice to do with a loved one, which is you sit beside the other person, facing them, you don't touch them. And as they breathe in, you go, and as they breathe out, you go, ah. Ah, and you pace their breath. And they learn to pay attention to their breath. And a profound intimacy can happen. And with this man, that happened. And after half an hour, he was so blissed out. And then I finished and I talked a little bit more about it. And he said, "Young man, a lot of people have come here and tried to help me. This is the first and only thing that actually helps." What did I do? I helped him turn and face into the pain and go deeper and deeper into it to discover that the pain is one thing and the suffering is another. And the suffering we can reduce stunningly in our lives. And it's not by taking the irritants out of our lives, because we can do lots of that, but then there's always more. So, what did the Buddha have to say to his friends? And taking some liberties with it. My friends, we're here because of the suffering inherent in birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. Birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And as much as I and we like to deny the existence of these things, they're really real. Doesn't matter how many concerts we get to go to, or new lovers we get to have, or great jobs. There's birth, there's sickness, there's old age, decay, and death. And then there's 4 other remarkable categories, very inclusive. Having experiences you don't want to have. How many of those have you had so far today? Another huge category, not having experiences you do want to have. And then there's this really challenging, interesting one. Being with people you don't want to be with, or person you don't want to be with. And then its companion, which is not being with the person you want to be with. Because they left, or they died, or the relationship just never really had legs. Or their job required them to move away. So, birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death, not having the experiences we want, having experiences we don't want, being with persons we don't want to be with, and not being with the beloved. Have you noticed how much suffering there is in your life? Is everything going your way? Has anything fallen apart recently? Is there any fear that it will fall apart tomorrow? Are you living with a bad, dangerous medical diagnosis? Is a loved one? Are you afraid of a bad medical diagnosis? Do you use life energy on anxiety? I have a complaint. You see how my mouth turns down like this? It's always done that. But there's a little jowl happening here because I live in gravity. I've considered asking Elon Musk if I can live in space, but this has taken this below the waterline. So it drools while I'm talking. Whew. Old men drool. Right? Or babies. Not me. Happens all the time. I'm laughing about it, but I have tears behind my eyes as I'm saying it. Because it's hard. It's decaying. It's breaking down. So the first ennobling truth, this talk is the category is the four ennobling truths, the four noble truths. And they're called noble because if we dare to let them become real for us, to kind of wipe our denial away. For one thing, we discover our common humanity. Right? The people we think of as enemies, they're just like us. There hasn't been a lot of talk about them, but I feel so sorry for those 17 and 18-year-old Russian boys. Totally ill-equipped. Their morale is in the toilet. They don't know what the hell they're doing there. But they can't go back. And they're, shooting explosive shells into apartment buildings where Ukrainians are living. And what's the difference between those people? They just happen to be on different sides of a political madness. So, the Buddha taught the first thing to do about dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness, this suffering, is to acknowledge that it's real. And I get to use my favorite word. It is not only real, it is ubiquitous. Let's all say it together. Ubiquitous. Ah, that's satisfying to me. We wake up in the morning and we live our day through, and there's thousands of likings and dislikings. And they are dukkha. Dukkha doesn't have to be a cancer diagnosis or a car accident, or it can be just, don't feel good this morning, or fear. Well, I've got this meeting today, I'm anxious about it. It's there. So the first thing that we're invited to do is to acknowledge the problem. And we can't acknowledge the problem to the degree that we are embedded in the denial system. You know, this moment is really unpleasant, but I'm on vacation in 2 months, and I'm going to be here and there, and I'm going to live in the fantasy of that vacation. I'm not going to realize that I'm sitting at the breakfast table with a person I don't like being with. Or I'm sitting at the breakfast table and I'm thinking about my child who's in dire straits somewhere. Or I don't look at the news a lot, but I do some. Pakistan is underwater. I spend a little time there. It makes it different when I've been somewhere. But the floods there are out of this world. Thousands of people dying. So if I open to that, there's dukkha. So the first thing is to acknowledge it's really real. It's really in big ways and little ways, and then to use our meditative practice and to start paying attention to it. And in that, there's 3 levels of the insight. The first level is like what comes in a talk like this, maybe this is true. The second comes when we start to practice and we start discovering, it is true. To be stuck in traffic and impatient is dukkha. To be stuck in traffic or to succumb to the madness of road rage is dukkha. I had a guy rage at me the other day. It was very odd. The nose of my car was a third of the way out into the lane. I didn't realize I was in the way. But this guy went by in a truck, and it was kind of like I was sitting there calm. I was coming over to here, actually, and minding my own business. And this guy went by giving me the finger and screaming at me from his truck. And it didn't provoke the reactivity that it provoked was, wow, he is in deep trouble, right? What's happening in his life that he is treating a stranger like that over nothing? But he's a great example of dukkha. Now, I could have gone to dukkha too if I'd gotten revved up and he shouldn't have done that, and then I'd be suffering. But the suffering is self-caused. Because the suffering wasn't that my car was in his way. The suffering was that he didn't like the fact that my car was in the way. So we start using this concept of dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and we start noticing it's there. And then the third insight is we start noticing it, and it's really real, and it's such a relief. It's such a relief to acknowledge it. And then to go through the world and to see the dukkha manifesting on people's faces. I had a fine encounter at Home Depot the other night. There was a fellow, clearly a long-term mental illness issue, I think. And he was going through the trash cans looking for cans. And he looked really sad. I walked up to him and said, "Are you doing that for environmental reasons or do you need money?" And he said, "Oh, I could sure use some money." And I gave him some money. He was so happy. So was I. Because I saw his dukkha, and I got to say to him, "You get a warm meal tonight." And he said, "Oh, you bet I will." Seeing the dukkha in the world, and sometimes we can alleviate, a little bit. So then the Buddha went on from there, though. He said, so now you can focus on dukkha. You know, you're beginning to take the Band-Aid off this thing of dukkha, of suffering. What's causing the suffering? And he had an answer. He found an answer. And he said that the cause is something he called tanha, or thirst, craving. And in perhaps its simplest form, to have a self, to have a mammalian body, is to have preferences. I don't like being hungry. I don't like my hand burning. I don't like being threatened. There's all these things I don't like. And there's these things I do like. I like this flavor and this person. But the world doesn't specialize, even living at the level of comfort that I do as a middle class, white person. I mean, you want to hear how lavishly I live? I have a hot shower most days. I have a washing machine in my house. I drive my own little 2013 Prius, and I have control of it. I have enough money to get it repaired when it gets broken. When I go to the grocery store, I basically buy what I want. Or when Jen and I go out for dinner, we'll say, Jen, my wife, one of us will say, "Well, what kind of food would you like tonight, honey?" "No, I don't feel like that again." What? I mean, but there's still suffering. Conflict over what kind of food we're going to have. Imagine that. So, the second ennobling truth, worthy of understanding, is the suffering isn't in the event, it's in the liking or disliking, the accepting or the not accepting of the event. And so then we bring our meditative practice into that and we start observing. What? Maybe the mind is really out of control, restless and agitated, and maybe throw in a little self-hatred. And I don't like that. And so I sit in meditation, and I not only is the mind out of control and being challenging, there's this extra layer which is, I don't like this. I wish this would go away. I wish this would stop. Or maybe think of your own examples of things that happen that you don't like. Or there's something you really want to happen and it's not happening and you're suffering. So the first insight of the second aspect of the four ennobling truths is, is this true? Is it true that it's not the circumstance that causes the suffering, but the reaction of the mind to it? And then we practice, and we notice it. It can be something as simple as sitting for a little while and your knee starts to hurt. And you check it out. It's not being injured. You're sure of that. And you decide, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to set my alarm, for 45 minutes. I'm going to sit here and see what happens. So it's a benign circumstance, but you watch as the pain gets big and disliking and fear, and this whole story happens. And then you also notice that sometimes the suffering is there and sometimes it's gone. Now, what the hell is going on with that? So the second aspect, the second insight of the truth of tanha is, I can pay attention to this. I can notice how I'm suffering. And I can notice what's causing it, which isn't the fact that I have a splinter in my hand or my child has gone off to college. We have an empty nest. Actually, Jennifer, my wife, is in Chicago right now with her son Adrian and her daughter Nina and their dad. They're launching Adrian into going to DePaul. And it's hard for Jen. She's been a mom. She's been an incredible mom. And now, poof. So, and then the third insight is it begins to become clear. The equation starts to become clear. And I would suggest this: the next time you discover yourself suffering, pause. Can I feel the suffering? What's happening here? And notice if there is some unenforceable rule related to the suffering. Right? This shouldn't be happening, or this should be happening. And by God, I'm going to suffer. And then there's the third of these extraordinary truths. The Buddha called it nibbana or nirvana. And it's unfortunate that we create such bizarre and unhelpful fantasies about what that means. Because, in a way, all it means is quenching. I tried to create this one time, and it just couldn't go very far. Imagine a dark room and a vat, maybe 4 feet in diameter, of cold, clean water. And the lighting is such that you see the rim and you see the water sort of as black. And the camera then goes up, and there's a white hot ball of iron on a wrought iron post, and there's a hand in a glove holding a wooden handle, and this iron ball is white hot. That's the hard part, to get it to white hot, I discovered. Propane won't come anywhere near it. But to get it white hot, and then it slowly moves, and I don't think there's music. It slowly moves, it gets closer and closer to the water, and then the camera zooms in, and when it's still about this far off the water underneath it starts to boil and dance. It's like, I'm not going to be around this. And then it goes in, and then all hell breaks loose, right? But there's still light. And the light goes from white to an off-white to yellow to a far high red, and then it goes to that luminous red, and then it's gone. That's what nirvana means. It's the quenching of suffering that comes through the acceptance of reality. So, I'm going to use something simple we can all relate to. Can you remember the last time you were sick? Did you suffer? What if that suffering were actually optional? That'd be a relief, wouldn't it? So a way that it works is, I've had so many opportunities to practice. Let's say I have a toothache. Thich Nhat Hanh, a very famous teacher of our time, said that every morning when you wake up, check and see if there's a toothache. If there's not, why not be ecstatic? Yes, no toothache today. So let's say there is a toothache. And we can go into, watch a small child with a toothache and say, oh, it's awful, it's awful, it's awful. Oh. Or we can acknowledge, decay. This is the nature of the body. And it hurts. Maybe it hurts like hell here. But as a meditator, we say, what can I do with this? And we maybe take a few deep breaths, and then we take awareness and we place it in the sensations of pain and the toothache. And then we go beyond it being a toothache, and we just get closer and closer and closer into the pain, and it's a pretty intense pain. Maybe it's an abscess, right? It's really ready to. And then we also then can notice that in the mind there's, oh no, I can't afford this, or this is awful. I've got this trip planned, and there's all this suffering that occurs. But we have mindfulness and concentration and the wholesome mental factors. And it turns out that somehow or another, mysteriously, I can pay attention to this toothache, heartache, whatever it is. And strangely, the closer I get to it, the more it becomes a brilliant sensation. And the more this resistance to it becomes redundant. To the point that there's no suffering. There's still a toothache, but there's no suffering. That's nirvana. So I'll let your minds make the connections of how that happens in your life. The poor me, ain't it awful, I'm a victim, all that stuff, that's all extra. Now, that doesn't mean we don't do everything we can to get rid of the toothache or to get ourselves to safety. This is absolutely not a teaching of powerlessness. It's a teaching of profound empowerment, because particularly if we're really suffering and we can find our way to what's causing the suffering, maybe we can reduce the suffering enough to strategically get ourselves into a safer circumstance or get care. So that's the paradigm. And the story goes that as the Buddha gave this talk to his friends, one by one they went, right. I get it. And not I get it intellectually, something transformed in them. And by the end of the talk, they were all wide awake. They had all fully awakened. That's it's like, where was I when that was happening? So then there's the fourth, and there's stages of insight with this realization of the quenching of suffering too. There's first, it can be a weird idea, but interesting maybe. And then I can go into my meditation and I discover, this sometimes with little things, this kind of works. And then, wow, it starts becoming part of our life. Just an intrusive thought. I had dinner with a dear friend last night. And we have a lot in common. And he was talking about a circumstance in his life in which he's experiencing some fear and jealousy, and I'm really just getting to know him in a way. And I was so happy for him, because these were circumstances in which he could have been telling himself and me a poor me story. He wasn't doing that at all. He was saying, I'm experiencing this jealousy and this fear and this. They were objects of observation rather than his identified experience. He's already halfway home, right? Because he's not a victim of life. He's a person who is riding with the inevitable, the vicissitudes. That's a nice Buddhist term the Buddhists use. Life, pleasure, pain, gain, loss, fame, disrepute, sick, healthy, and so on. And it goes on with great predictability. No, that's not true. It's not predictable, but the fact of these polarities is predictable. So, the Buddha was peddling a particular kind of psycho-spiritual vaccine that we can take in, and we can use a treatment. It's actually the fourth of the Four Noble Truths is the Eightfold Path, which is the container for these next talks over the next 15 or so sessions. But foundationally, at the very core of it, is the Four Ennobling Truths. And without the Four Ennobling Truths, meditation is a nice thing to do to relax, and it's helpful for stress management. But is it really going to undermine the roots of suffering? Not so likely, because we're not carrying out the research. The research is the question. Is there dukkha? Is there suffering? And what causes it? And is there something I can do? The answers to all those in the Buddhist teaching is yes. That really there is something we can do, and that we will, as we do it, we will discover that we are happier and more loving and more capable of compassion with ourselves and other beings. It's kind of a remarkable story, isn't it? Well, I think I want to stop there. Could we have a song to go out on? Please? Thank you for paying attention, caring about this. Thank those of you on here for that same thing. Here. That one, the thick cord. Yep. Oh, I turned it down too. When you get plugged in, I'll turn up. No, I lied. What the heck? No, that one's not even plugged in. It's this one. Yes. All right, powering up. Throw it over your shoulder.
Like Joanna Macy. Wow. I feel transformed by that talk. It's another sing-along. It's more of a sing-along than the last one. Easier to learn. I don't need to say anything to connect it to the talk. Find your way there. It will connect or it won't. This is called Ease Up the Reins, and it's got two parts. So I'll sing the first part, then we can sing it together if you'd like. Second part, and yeah, we'll do back and forth. So the first part goes, ease up the reins on your heart, Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Let's try it together. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Great, again. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Beautiful. All right, the second part goes, and we can sing it to ourselves if you like. That's what I wrote it for, but it works for anyone. Oh, baby, oh, sweet baby, oh, baby, you're okay. One more time, just me, because it kind of changes the second time. Oh, baby, oh, sweet baby, oh, baby, you're okay. So let's try that together. Oh, baby, oh, sweet baby, oh, baby, you're okay. Oh, baby, oh, sweet baby, oh, baby, you're okay. Great, so let's put the two together, see how it sounds. If you like, feel free to not sing. All right, ease up the reins. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart again. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Oh baby, oh baby, oh sweet baby, oh baby, you're okay. Oh baby, oh sweet baby, oh baby, you're okay. Great, now we're gonna make it just a little bit. Do we have time to do it a little together? Okay. Oh, awesome, you're gonna do it with me? Great. So, how about anyone on this side of the room can be Team Robert, and anyone on this side of the room can be Team Adam. We're gonna start with, which one do you want to start with? Okay, so we'll start with Ease Up the Reins. You'll start with Oh Baby, and then we'll switch when it's time to switch. Or if you're just like, just let me stick to one, just choose your favorite. This is sort of the sukha factor of all the dukkha, the sweetness, the calming, that which we can rest in as we deal with the vicissitudes. Okay, so Oh Baby. Ease up. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Ease up the reins on your heart, on your heart. Ease up the reins, you're so hard on your heart. Switch it up. Oh baby, oh sweet baby. Oh baby, you're okay. Oh baby, oh sweet baby. Oh baby, you're okay. Last time, let's all just do Oh Baby together, and then we'll just end there. And sing it to yourself or anyone who could use a little You're Okay today. Oh baby, oh sweet baby, oh baby, you're okay. Oh baby, oh sweet baby, oh baby, you're okay. Stay there. Stay. Yeah, okay. I have the power. I just wanted to thank you for that gorgeous guidance. And may all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice, which is a way of saying we're all interconnected. We can't do anything that doesn't affect everybody. So please take a moment to look around the room, make eye contact with somebody,
Wish them well in your heart. And if you don't want to look around them, you don't have to. It's not compulsory. But when eyes meet, something happens. Even if it's from one car to another, consciousness meets. So please may this, here, I'll get down so I'm visible to the people online. Please may these teachings inspire us all week to be kind to ourselves and to all beings. So please come and join us for a cup of tea or coffee. And yes, thank you again. So a bow to each other. And let us notice standing, moving. How does it happen? All right. You can unplug. Yep. Well, dear friends on Zoom, thank you very much for being here. Come to gallery, there you are. I missed seeing you while I was doing that, but I'm glad you're here now. I hope you have a fine day.
Thank you, Robert.
I forget the camera's over there.
Thank you, Robert.
Pretty nice music, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Really, very gifted. So, till soon, till tomorrow, if you want to come in the morning.
Robert.
Hello, Cricket. Haven't seen you in a while. Lovely to see you.
Well,
I
unfortunately,
won't be able to hear you. I'm not plugged into sound here. Okay, prepare for the leap to hyperspace. Whoosh. Oh, wait a minute. I should do this first. I'm going to do this. Stop that. YouTube.